Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Rest is Football with Alan Shearer and Micah Richards. How are we? Well, it's not like I saw you that long ago, but...
We're all right. More importantly, how are you? Me and Micah have been worried about you the last few days. Can you tell us anything about your contract? It's like you, Salah, Van Dijk and Trent are all coming to the end of your contract. What's going on? Inform us, please.
I think there is one significant difference. The Liverpool fans really care about those three. As you know, like Trent, like Virgil, like Mo, I'm coming to the end of my contract in the summer. So it's natural at some point that you have to have conversations. And they've just started. So I don't know why it all spiraled out of control. But
what's more concerning, I'm 4-1 to replace you.
That is a fucking massive concern, by the way.
4-1.
4-1.
I'd love to see you take over, Mike. I think you'd be brilliant in the chair.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
No.
I'm not signing my new contract if you're a presenter, by the way.
I'll be telling them to get rid of you. Fresh blood.
Oh, you'll have some power then, Micah.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine Big Meek's a dictator.
Yeah. I told him, mate, with your eyesight, you could ever read an auto cue. But anyway. I'm not going to start with the Man U game because it was dross. So I'm going to start with Brighton against Spurs because that was actually, as we all expected, we said yesterday, we were all speaking in the Match of the Day office, weren't we? We were going, this has got the makings of being anything. And particularly the first half, it was like end-to-end, two high lines, really entertaining fare. I
think both teams will have so many games like that this season because that's the way they play, you know? They play risky football, high-risk football.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to watch. They think they'll outscore the opposition. I mean, like Newcastle many years ago, remember with Kevin Keegan, that we'll score more than you. And that's the attitude that both teams have got. I mean, it would really frustrate you as in terms of fans, I guess, at times.
Spurs fans at half time, they'd have
been
absolutely flying.
But that's the way the manager wants to play, and that it's for the neutral, it's really entertaining.
Can I ask you where this Spursy sort of theme came from, Gary? Because
wasn't around when I played, Micah. We won the FA Cup, mate.
I don't like it. Every time Spurs have a bad performance, it's Spursy.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of context is needed with Spurs. They've got amazing ground. He was always known for bringing young players through and then selling them on. When they got to the Champions League final, it was just that question, could they go again? They didn't, and then they restructured the club and again brought young players through. Different managers, of course they want to win something. Of course they want to do, but I think the club is run brilliantly well. And I think under this manager, although at times it must be frustrating because it doesn't seem like they have a plan B at the moment in time. But in terms of what Spurs have been doing, I think it's fantastic. But obviously a bad result today. And I think we'll talk about managers and their inputs, especially the young Hurtzler. But the players have to take a little bit of responsibility. They have to do on this occasion what the manager wants, but surely he could drop 5 yards back. Or, you know, in the first half, Spurs were brilliant. They didn't finish off the game and then ended up losing 3-2. It was just a whirlwind of a game. And
Brighton deserve a lot of credit as well. I mean,
correct.
At half time, you thought, well, they're in a bit of a spot of trouble here, but they always looked to threaten. Both teams looked to threat. Both teams went for it, gung-ho for victory. I applaud that because there are so many teams you watch that, they play low block or they, build up slowly, knock the ball around the back for about 20 minutes. And the two games that we saw were such a contrast between, two teams being a bit wary and not wanting to lose rather than two teams actually going full out to win. And whilst, any Tottenham fan will be like, they'll be gutted today. I include myself amongst that as a former Spurs man. So, I wanted to cheer them on and do well. But I'd sooner watch that. I'd sooner watch that kind of football where you're going to go to a game and by and large you're going to be thoroughly entertained. And I think they're heading in the right direction. He hasn't been there that long. It's only a year and a bit. he's changed the way the club's mentality in terms of the way they play, because they've gone from 2 defensive coaches in Mourinho and Conte, and then you've drastically changed things. And they are a joy to watch. Now, they may have, collapsed a bit in the second half, but you've got to give Brighton credit. They were brilliant in that first period of the second half. But you're always going to get a chance to score goals against Spurs because, that high line, it's dangerous. And the same applies to Brighton. It could easily have been the other way around that game. But Spurs fans were grumbling a little bit earlier in the season when they only have 4 points after 4. But the truth is they should have beaten Leicester. They could easily have beaten Newcastle. And they could have won that game today. They could be a lot higher. But the fact that they play that high-risk game is one of the reasons they haven't got that points. But I don't know. They're good to watch, though. They're good to watch.
Great to watch.
I think we'll be sat here so many weeks talking about Spurs and Brighton. It's like they're going to play that way, I mean, there is an argument when you go 2-0, then maybe you should shut up shop and take the points and get out there. But they're not. They want to go and score 3, 4, 5. And with that comes risk. And you're going to get done now and again. And they were well and truly done today.
In Ange we trust.
As far as Brighton was, I mean, they came back really well. Matoma's back to full form.
He's brilliant. He's
good, isn't he?
Such a threat. I mean, he was. I mean, he's so exciting, isn't he? When he gets the ball, he's just waiting for something to happen. I thought he was really good and really entertaining today.
You know what I thought was good? I thought Welbeck was really good today.
Really well.
Holding up the ball, working hard. Obviously, he gets his goal, but not just his all round. And even at the end of the game, where they all went forward for a counter-attack, didn't they? And all the young players went forward and won't get him back. It panned to him. He's like, get back. I just love that. He's a leader on a pitch.
I wish you wouldn't praise players for working hard.
No, because it's not the norm. It's,
what, to work hard?
It's not, Al, I'm telling you.
What?
It should be.
What do you mean it's not the norm?
It's the bare minimum, isn't it?
It's not for Man United, is it? They don't work. When I say work hard, I'm not saying they don't work hard, but I'm saying going the extra mile. So if there's 2 minutes on the clock, Welbeck's running back to help his team. That's what I mean by working hard, doing a little extra.
Okay.
Mikey, you seem in slightly better spirits today. Have you had a little bit better down fantasy than yesterday? Because you were down yesterday.
No, I was down.
He was miserable, wasn't he?
I'm sick to death of it.
He didn't raise a smile or anything yesterday.
I'm sick to death of it. Seriously, it controls my mood. It controls my day. I told you about Salah. Salah blank. Haaland blank.
You left out Saka.
Saka. I can't afford him.
I mean, I haven't got a clue about fantasy football, but he's the first player you put in, Saka, no?
Yeah, it's all about
clearly
prices. I went with Cole Palmer instead. He scored 4 last week.
He got an assist, didn't he?
Yeah, but assist is not good enough.
Mr. Veltman's quite good on the shithousery front, isn't he? I saw him had a little scuffle with Maddison and then threw himself to the ground. He was one, of course, who got Rice sent off, wasn't he? With the quick free kick. But he's got a little bit of something about him, that one, hasn't he?
I got a little slightly angry when he chucked himself to the ground when him and Maddison came together. Yeah, I thought, what the fuck are you doing? Come on, man.
I thought the same. I thought, come on, mate.
Come on, Jesus, honestly.
Aston Villa, Man United, that was very drab, wasn't it? I saw Eric Ten Hag at the end of the game saying, that's clean sheets and there's 4 clean sheets we've had this season and we're going in the right direction and everyone's... And I just thought, well, when you've been struggling a little bit like they have and then try to claim that performance as a step in the right direction. I mean, it's always a good, decent point going away to Aston Villa, but it was pretty turgid, wasn't it?
In the grand scheme of things, going away to Villa and keeping a clean sheet, you look at it and you think, okay, yeah, acceptable, good result, given their league positions. But with what he says after the game, I mean, I really don't think he helps himself now and again when he says about we're going in the right direction. They were 13th before the weekend and they're now 14th. It's like,
I've got a few little stats here of this season, Manchester United. I think it's their worst start to a season in the Premier League. It's slightly worse than it was last season. Goals 5, which ranks them at 19th. Expected goals is fairly high. They're 5th there. XG performance, they're 20th. Conversion rate of chances, 18th. And big chances missed, 17th. So it seems like the biggest problem they've got is converting their chances. But there certainly weren't many chances today.
They're just not good enough, though. They're not good enough.
If only they'd spent a few, Bob.
We hear a lot of the ex-players saying for Manchester United this and Manchester United when they were playing, they're miles and miles and miles away from that. They're not good enough in so many positions, particularly up front.
They're very strong on the bench, though, because they had £360 million worth of Erik ten Hag signings on the bench.
Yeah, it was rotation, though.
You don't rotate your centre-halves. Come on, let's be honest. Martinez and De Ligt were dropped, weren't they? You bring
Of course they were.
Evans and...
As were the rest of them dropped.
I suppose in their defence, you would say, come on, this is just a few days after playing an away game in Europe at Porto. Tough game.
10 men.
10 men for a lot of it, as they were the week before. So also Villa, I thought, looked a little bit after the Lord Mayor's show, after beating Bayern Munich. Looked a bit flat, didn't they? In fact, both sides looked like they could have done with an extra couple of days rest before they played that game.
Yeah, agreed. I just want to ask you, Gary, though, because me and Alan have spoken about Man United for some time now, and I thought there was really good signs at the start of the season, obviously winning the FA Cup last season. Alan pretty much called it from the start of the season, wasn't really buying it. What's your opinion on Man United? So we've got all the stats, they don't score enough goals, of course. They've got a new behind-the-scenes team that have come in. What's missing from your experience within football for a team, not in a club, because we know how big the club is, for a team like Man United?
Recruitment, Micah. Recruitment. And whether that be in the coaching staff or mainly in the team, they've spent a lot of money. They're up there with the top spenders. It's not like they've not been backed. And that was the same in the previous income. I mean, yeah, obviously the Glazers are still around, but you know what I mean. Before Radcliffe came in, they were backed. But I don't think they've really spent it wisely. And now I'll go to Erik ten Hag's team here. Right. So I think it's very difficult to buy a player for Erik ten Hag because he plays a different system all the time. Sometimes they're counter-attacking. Sometimes they'll play a little bit of a high press. Sometimes they won't. We've said it many times on here. What is their style of football? What is their identity? I don't think you have that. Now, if you were buying for, let's say, Ange Postecoglou, or the Brighton, who do really well, or Brentford, or someone like, even those kind of clubs, or Manchester City, they have a way of playing that very rarely varies. They don't go from being a counter-attacking team for 3 weeks and then being a team on the front foot for 3 weeks. But you tell me, what is Erik ten Hag's type of player? Can you answer that? I can't. So I think primarily that is the problem. And I think and I think that's been the case for some time, and previous managers. And we know they've had problems at the top of the club and that filters down and all that sort of stuff. And it does. And it's been difficult for any manager. But I think it's exacerbated at the moment by the lack of a style and the lack of identity of the actual playing side of things. And therefore, they just seem to buy ad hoc. Oh, he played at, I had him at Ajax. He was really good there. I'm sure he was, any of those players that he's brought from there. But where do they fit in? Someone like Højlund, that was obvious. He's a striker. You've got to have a striker. But in other positions, in other areas, if you play a slightly different system every week, how do you know what you're buying for? So I think that's probably what's happened. And the other thing we'll see what happens with Erik ten Hag. He was left in the lurch, wasn't he? He was put in a difficult position. I mean, things hadn't gone well for him last season. Obviously, they were starting to talk to other managers. We knew about that. We got lambasted a bit for discussing that on the pitch after he won the FA Cup. But we knew that the club at the time was speaking to one or two managers. We had that information. So the whole thing's a bit of a mess. And you thought when these new people would come in, now they've obviously not been there that long yet, But it's certainly not changed for the better. And the way they handled the whole summer operation, I thought was particularly poor.
Yeah, I think they've had a really poor start. I think, and they've given them an extended contract. They invested in players that spent a fortune in the summer, and I don't see them improving. I haven't seen any improvement.
But do you have any sympathy, Alan, for the players that he's brought in, for all the reasons that Gary's basically just said? Because Ugarte, who they've brought in, I know he's only played a couple, but he looks a shadow of the player.
Yeah, he's only just arrived. He's arrived at a place that's a bit of a pickle and a bit of a mess.
Exactly.
It's difficult. You've got to. I don't think you can be too judgmental of the players there at the moment. A little bit like I felt Chelsea last season, because they're all over the shop for most of the season. They rallied towards the end, and that improvement's been continued this season. But I don't think you can read too much into that side of things when confidence is low. They don't really seem to know their jobs on the pitch a lot of the time. They're actually better when they play a game like that, when they can sit and hit teams on the counter-attack and use Rashford's pace, who was probably the one threat they had. He cut inside a couple of times, although he might have got sent off. He was lucky, wasn't he?
Seriously.
I think they've got 3 problems.
Go on.
They're not good enough up front, they're not good enough in midfield, and they're not good at the back.
What about the manager?
We've said enough.
Yeah, we have. That's not a great combination.
I can see the Man United fans attacking me now.
I don't think so. I think they're frustrated as well. They get it. They don't. I mean, crikey, they've been through. I mean, the problem with being a United fan, and it's probably like Liverpool before they went on their big dip didn't win the title for 30 years, is that you get so spoilt with success, don't you? The expectancy levels are so high for everybody else that comes in there. It's very difficult. But a good week for Aston Villa, even though they were looked a little bit jaded today, I thought.
They've got injuries, had a couple of big players out for them, but I think the midweek against Bayern certainly took its toll in terms of the players must have been on such a high, and there's no doubt that affected them today, definitely.
The good thing about Aston Villa is we all expected them to dismantle Man United today because of how far they have come, which is really good positive signs. I mean, you're not going to get a feeling like beating Bayern in the Champions League, but the fact that they didn't lose and they had some players out, it's a positive week for them.
Forest have done well, haven't they? Good start to the season for them. I think it's a good point away at Chelsea. Yeah,
it was definitely a good point for them. After what happened last weekend, I think they would have gone there, and there's no doubt before the game, I'm pretty sure that they would have taken a point before the game with the form that Chelsea have been in. I didn't see any of that game. Obviously, was watching the Villa Man United game as well, so Forest would have been delighted, I think, with that.
They've got some good players, Forest, though, haven't they? I really like their manager as well, Nuno. Chris Wood's been playing out of his skin. Scored again, hold up the ball. Gibbs White in behind him. Hudson-Odoi and ex-Newcastle, Elliot Anderson's a really good player as well. So Ward-Prowse, with his experience, they've just got players in there who maybe could play at a higher level, but might be squad players. But now they've gone to Forest and they're really key players in what they're trying to do. I just like the way that they're so exciting to watch on the break. Set pieces are very good as well. So I'm really happy with Forest this season.
Yeah, top half at the moment. They'll be really happy. Chelsea sitting fourth. I guess they'll be disappointed with that. They'd have fancied 3 points the way they were going at home. Another assist for Cole Palmer, goal for Madueke.
It's not enough.
It's not. Oh, he's back to fantasy now. It's better than no assists and no goals, though, isn't it, Micah?
True.
Yeah.
But we like Chelsea. We like what Maresca's doing. I think he had a little bit of pressure, didn't he, coming into the job?
Absolutely.
Obviously, Gary, you know him more than me and Alan with him being at Leicester, but I think he's done a really good job in terms of his interviews, the way of playing. He seems as though he's got a settled team now with Madueke, and then you've got Jackson up front, Cole Palmer in behind, and Sancho starting on the left, and you've still got people you can bring off the bench as well. So, I like the way Chelsea look at the moment, although they'd be disappointed with just a draw today.
They will. I'd say about Maresca is that he too has a definite way of playing. Play up, likes to build through the back, break the lines like so many of the teams do. But he definitely has a way of playing, which again will help the recruitment. Although the last thing in the world they need are any more players, probably, barring someone special. But they've already got someone special in Cole Palmer. 6 goals, 5 assists already. This season. So he's got you plenty of points, Micah.
No, but I didn't have him in last week. That's the whole point.
I forgot about that.
I've just put him in this week.
But he'll be asking you to take him out because you're a jinx. He's right up there with the best players in the world at the moment. I mean, he'd get carried away with these things, but what a talent.
Incredible talent. Player. I think he's doing a good job, Maresca, because he's fighting a lot of fires there at Chelsea in terms of the size of the squad. He had to disappoint several players, didn't he? And he had to do that. But there's no doubt that they would have taken 4th, after 7 or 8 games. So plenty to do. I don't expect him to challenge for the title, but I think in terms of getting it, I think that I haven't changed my mind on them. They could finish anywhere between 4th and 8th.
Let's talk about Saturday. Firstly, we were together all day, which is always a delight.
What about the Leicester analysis?
Well,
I watched the game and you asking me.
I was watching City. You were watching Arsenal, weren't you?
Yeah.
So we didn't. We obviously had it in front of us, but we didn't have our full attention. But we said to Gary after the game, so what was the Leicester game like? And he came out with so much shit, didn't he? He was like, it wasn't a very good
just
game.
Do Buonanotti's goal. Just do Buonanotti's goal. That was the only
me and Al go to the room, so just to give you some insight of what me and Al do, we go to a room where we see our analysis. So Al's doing his analysis about Man City, and I won't spoil it because we're going to talk about them a little bit later, but how they play and what Fulham did, etc. I'm doing what Arsenal did and what Southampton did. So we get to the Leicester game. So we've got a big screen in front of us. And all what Gary has told us that Leicester did well and they did this and did that. So me and Al are watching the clips. I'm thinking, Leicester are getting bad here.
That's what I told you. I said you could focus on the defence because they kept a clean sheet against the team that had the much better of the second half. The first half was fairly even. I told you. I said, I said, to be honest, they weren't that good. But the keeper played well and they defended okay. And we got a goal. And we got 3 points. So
I've put 2 of the Leicester players in my team of the week.
I presume Buonanotte was one of them.
Buonanotte was one of them. Wout Fass was the other one.
Fass? You put Wout in?
Yeah.
So it gets to the night, just quickly. It gets to the night, we're doing it live. and Al nudges me and says, I want to do this game because Leicester's next and Leicester's an absolute shambles. And all we've got is the goal. And to be fair to you, you took it in the end. But yeah.
It's all part of the fun. We had the 3 the 2 title favourites, I should say, in action yesterday, starting with the early kickoff, which was Liverpool. They made a little bit hard work of it, but they got there in the end by a solitary goal.
Yeah, I think they were the better team as well, weren't they? I mean, Palace had a couple of chances, but it felt as if Liverpool never really had to get out of third gear. And that's what you have to do, I think, when it is tough when you're playing in Europe in the midweek to come back and then put in a really good performance at the weekend. You've just got to find a way of getting the points. And all 3 teams did that in terms of Arsenal, City and Liverpool.
I thought it was quite fun that Arne Slot, the day before the game, said about, after playing in Europe, playing away in Europe and then having to come back, play in the early kickoff. It doesn't make any difference. It shouldn't matter. It doesn't. It's nothing. And then after the game, when his team were a little bit jaded, probably, he's gone, we really need to look at this. Well, they got 2 injuries, so I understand why he switched it a little bit. But who knows whether that was anything to do with it. But it was quite interesting. He's had an amazing start, really. I know it was, but it's an away victory again. They look very organised. I think we might have to start calling him Arnie Schlott rather than Slot, because I'm sure it is. It's Dutch, isn't it? It must be Schlott. Do you think?
Schlott.
Yeah, he's had a bloody brilliant start, hasn't he? He had that blip against Forest.
He's won 9 out of his first 10, is he? I think he's won 9 out of his first 10. I think we did it yesterday.
Been brilliant.
I think with Liverpool, it's always as pundits or when you're trying to analyse a game, because we're so used to what they used to do, and it's not quite that, but it's still efficient, a little bit, like you said, looked a little bit tired, but still got the 3 points, and that's all that mattered, really.
Got some big tests to come, though, I think.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
Yeah, next few games, they've got Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, Brighton at home, Villa, and then Southampton, Man City, and your boys Newcastle. So we'll probably know a little bit more in 5 or 6 games' time. But
if they avoid injuries, certainly defensively, then I don't think they'll be too far away. I'm not sure they'll have enough to win it, but I do not think they'll be far away. I think they'll put up a really good fight, though.
Yeah, Arsenal and Manchester City both won. As we expected, although Fulham gave City a real go, didn't they?
Their game plan was brilliant.
Yeah, and there was one of the moments of the season, I think, probably not for Kyle Walker, but Adama Traore gave Kyle Walker a yard start and then went past him. When they started racing, we thought, oh, this is the race we've all been waiting for. My goodness me, Traore.
He gave him 5 yards as well, didn't he?
I told you. He's the fastest.
Yeah.
He was at Villa. He was at Villa as a youngster.
Yeah.
I raced him and I nearly did my hamstring. He gave me like 10 yards and I was quick. Maybe not Kyle Walker quick, but quick enough. 10 yards. So when he got up to speed, I knew full well that he could do that to absolutely anybody. He should have been a sprinter.
He'd have hated that, wouldn't he, Carl? But you have to say that, Kyle Walker's 34 now. At some point, he has to slow down.
Maybe he'll get to the end. When he retires in 2 or 3 years' time, he might come back and say, I knew that was the time when I was on the down slope.
Because there is one, isn't there? There's one for us all. I remember playing. I'd had my injury problems in Japan at the end of my career, and I remember coming back in this kind of moderately quick central defender, and the ball was going through, and I was one-on-one with the keeper, and he kind of ran past me, and I thought, time's up. Time's up. It's a horrible moment. It's like, rubbish. That was a hell of a race. But I thought Fulham caused them a lot of problems. And with a better finishing, particularly from Traore, which is obviously the thing he lacks a bit. Did you see the images of Pep Guardiola on the pitch with Traore at the end? It looked like he was talking him through how he should finish with a player from the opposition. Obviously would have known him from way back, but I thought that's classic Pep, and he just loves the game so much. That
it's a good job he couldn't finish, because they created so many good chances, Fulham, hitting them on the break, and certainly in the latter stages of the game, missing Rodri a little bit with that lack of protection in front. But yeah, Fulham will look back and think on another day they should have taken something from that game.
That game, Al, that he was doing, was there anyone else from Fulham who you were impressed with? I know they've got Jimenez and Iwobi.
Yeah, Jimenez did well. Pereira did well. I was. Their game plan was obviously to hit them on the break and to use their pace and strength in forward positions. And if they could finish, then they would have taken all 3 points, never mind one. Yeah,
a couple of great goals for City. Kovacic got one of them was a little bit of a deflection, the other was a good goal, and Doku's goal was a spanker, wasn't it? Although I saw him in an interview afterwards, and I'm sure he said, the fella said, "Oh, you've hit one as pure as," and he went, "Well, I'm not sure. I didn't hit it very well." I thought, really? He went in like a rocket. I might have misheard.
He was too honest.
I might have misheard. It was one of those post-match interviews. City unbeaten in 50 home games now, and before you start shouting at us, that we know that includes the Real Madrid game when it went to penalties in the Champions League, in which ultimately they did lose, but that doesn't count in the official stats as a loss. So
unbelievable, isn't it? It's absolutely staggering. Yeah. And even when they weren't at their best yesterday, for all we spoke, or I spoke about Fulham on Match of the Day last night and tonight, how well they were, City again, they found a way to win. So you've got to give them and Pep great credit for doing that.
Once again, a little bit like against Leicester, where they were very dominant, but suddenly they were up against it when Southampton scored. I remember as soon as Southampton scored, and they started causing Arsenal a few problems in the second half. And as soon as they scored, Al goes, 3-1. It'll be 3-1. I hate to give you credit, you were right, but it was true. Yeah. And our man Saka again, who Micah hasn't got in his fantasy football team. Couple of assists and a goal.
It's unbelievable. No, seriously. I mean, people can say whatever they want about he's not world class or whatever. First of all, I mentioned last week the work he puts in for the team and how he defends, but how consistent he is in the right decisions all of the time.
Yeah.
He might not do the things that Cole Palmer does in terms of having that freedom on the field. So the way Arsenal play, a lot of his work is as a unit, where Cole Palmer's sort of playing as a number 10 and can get on the ball wherever he wants. So it looks more like he's a bit more of a maverick. But in terms of Saka and his numbers, his consistency, he's incredible. Incredible player.
Yeah. Can you remember when we spoke with Jolien Lescott? And Jolien was saying, wasn't he? Because we talked about which of the players, and he, I think he named two. I think Kane was the other, but he said Saka. He said, "Wow, he makes the right decision every time." He said he can go outside, he can go inside, and I think it might be one of those players that ultimately, because he makes things look easy, gets kind of a little bit underrated, although certainly not by those in the game, I don't think.
No, for those who watch him week in, week out, I'm sure the Arsenal fans as well, when he's at home, he's a special talent. But not only that, he can play different positions. He can play wing back, he can play full back, he can play number 10, he can play anywhere, which makes him so great. And yeah, I just think that his form at this moment in time, after everything he's been through, to reach this level consistently is just really great to see.
I mean, he's just an incredible player, left foot, right foot, attitude, but you know what is also as you know, I don't like swearing. He's a tough little fucker, man. He's like, he gets kicked every single week and he just goes back for more and he never shirks a challenge. He's like, he's just a phenomenal footballer.
And he's got that sweet little personality and nature that makes him very likeable, but you don't, and it kids you a little bit, doesn't it? Because he's fiercely competitive and strong, isn't he? Really, really strong and hard, so tough to get off the ball. I love watching him play. You mentioned him last week, and he continues to kind of thrive in the number 9 role, Alan. Kai Havertz was scored
I think he's really impressing me in terms of his performances and goals and attitude.
Scored every game at the Emirates this season.
Do you know, he's been a real centre forward, and not just his goals, but his hold-up play, what he's doing for the team, bringing players into the game, challenging for balls in the air when perhaps he knows he might not win them, but trying to make it awkward for defenders. So I've been really, really impressed with him this season.
I think the good thing about Havertz is he's been able to adapt to what the manager wants, because we was always scratching our heads, where's he going to play? What's his best position? But
seems to have found his role now.
You know, he's found his role, but he scored in the Champions League final. Let's respect what he can deliver. German international. You know, I remember when he was at Leverkusen early doors in his career and everyone was going crazy for him. Yes, players have a little bit of a dip. He's going through a time at Chelsea where things weren't going, but now he's found his home. He's found his home and he's delivering.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we should end this particular episode probably with maybe the performance of the week from Brentford. Our old friend Thomas Frank, we worked with him in the Euros.
Don't forget West Ham.
Oh, sorry. I think we should finish this week on the two performances of the week. I missed out West Ham. How did I do that? What an idiot. Brentford and West Ham, who both banged in loads of goals, but I still think Brentford probably edged it. And what about this madness of keep scoring? I mean, the previous 3 games they scored in the first minute, and this game, I think it was just over a minute. So, I mean, wow.
How good is Thomas Frank as a coach, though?
He's done an amazing job.
You know, when we spent time with him at the Euros, and we he didn't come on the pod, did he? But he spent a lot of time with us on the downtime, and just the way his knowledge is about the game, the way he sees it, the way he would look at it a little bit different, maybe from like the player's point of view. So when we're talking or analysing game, we're looking at certain positions or whatnot, but he's looking at, well, the player is doing this because he's been told to this by the manager. So you can't really criticise him on that because that's what I'm telling him to do. And it was just a different way of seeing it. And he said to us, didn't he, that he was going to play attacking football. And I think the big thing, losing Tony, losing Wissa this year to injury, but still being able to play the same way and have very good results. So he's showing how good he is as a manager. And he sent me a voice note before the show yesterday, which you guys know. And I'm sure he don't mind me sort of saying that. But just in how the game went for us, I said congratulations of the win and all that sort of stuff. And he mentioned that Damsgaard is really finding himself, and he was a player who at Sampdoria he was fantastic.
Well, he scored that free kick in the semi-final of the Euros, didn't he, against England?
And it not quite lived up to what we expected, but now he's sort of finding his feet, so that was great to see.
Now, I really want to talk about West Ham at this point. But it was a very, very much needed and important home victory because for the first time ever, they'd lost their first 3 home games in.
Well, you can imagine the reaction if they hadn't have beaten Ipswich at home because they're already under pressure. Signings coming in, spent a few quid, new manager. And they went all out attack yesterday and it worked for them, you know. They had Antonio, Paquetá, Bowen, Kudus. So all of those played their part, played really well, scored goals, and that might just be the springboard for them to kick on a bit, no, West Ham?
Yeah, I would say so. Probably a bit of a reminder for Ipswich that it's tough at the top in this division. You would expect them to get the odd thumping. All those teams coming up from the Championship are finding it difficult. Only 1 game won out of 21 between the 3 of them.
It was interesting listening to Kieran McKenna, though, after the game, saying that the West Ham were really direct, and that's the first time. I thought it was a tad disrespectful, because I thought West Ham played really well, and they might have been direct when they had to be, but some of their play and their movement off the ball and 1 and 2 touch passing was superb. They battered Ipswich.
Okay, that's it. We'll be back on Wednesday with our question and answer episode. Don't forget, if you want to get a question in for us, the best way to do that is through the newsletter. Just go to therestisfootball.com. Have a great week, everyone. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Have a great week.